So masks have been proven as an effective way to combat COVID-19 when implemented with other measures, right? But unfortunately, not everyone was wearing masks, wearing masks properly, or wearing the right type of masks. How are masks and other policies being enforced on campus?
Ryan, why don't I take that one on? So I think you'll see just from the messaging, and it's real interesting because I was getting an awful lot of feedback from colleagues across the country about messaging and how we would use various kinds of policies, procedures, and protocols in order to make sure that people are in compliance. As you can tell, our messaging may be different than Pitt or some of these other places, Virginia. There are a lot of others. And we take a real measured approach in that we believe that the vast majority of our students, which is absolutely the case, and which that has not changed in any way, are going to be receptive and responsive to creating an environment that is safe and healthy, right? And the manner in which we communicate with our students, right, is one of, in my view, mutual respect, right? So what we do is provide information. And the manner in which we go about this is really not inconsistent with what we do historically and traditionally, okay? Now, there are some things that are different. We did, in fact, amend the code to specifically include this particular component when it came to pandemic and other kinds of, and these are legal terms, acts of God and things of that nature.
Sure.
So we did decide to do that just for clarity and continuity, right? Now, once again, and I know because students have called and asked about it, right? Because, and let's just take last week alone, we had roughly seven parties, okay? And those parties were beyond the requisite guidelines in terms of their numbers. And then they were reported. And the police will report those too. The Clemson City Police will report those. Those individuals did, in fact, go through the Office of Community and Ethical Standards, and we used interim measures, and they were suspended immediately. Now, you're probably saying, well, why would we? Well, there's a reason for that, right? We know in order for us to get a handle on this and to minimize the spread of the virus, these are the things that have to happen. And that does, in fact, compromise the greater community. So when there is a risk, and there's a known risk, and that people will fully engage in behavior, which is egregious, and we believe that that would be when we talk about those size of gatherings, right? They get a hearing, right, within the first 24 hours, and then there'll be a determination as to how they would proceed after that. That is not inconsistent with what we have done and what we will continue to do, right? I know some students were really concerned about the city issuing citations, and they find another citation by way of the university, which is consistent with the Tiger Steps piece, right? That's not inconsistent with what we do as well. So the code is specifically designed, right? It is educationally based, but also designed in such a way that we will address those issues, and we do it in a way that is deliberate, right, and efficient. So that method of enforcement, once again, is clearly consistent with things that we've always done in the past. But make no mistake about it, we're going to be pretty assertive about making sure that the collective campus is going to be safe. Now, saying that, Ryan, as I said before, the vast majority, 98% of our student communities are actively engaged and are an active participant in our efforts to abate the spread of the virus.
Sure.
So it may have a little bit more in terms of notoriety, because I know Greenville News picked it up and some others may have picked it up as well. But as I said before, it is not inconsistent with what we do. And it is an effective means of enforcement. And you're not going to believe this, but the vast majority of reports that we get by way of incident reports are coming from other students.
Sure.
So it's
that's referring to gatherings, right, or parties, correct?
Right.
So I was more talking, and thank you for that clarification and talking about the code of conduct and the amendment. I was more talking about, like, maybe you're walking around campus, or maybe you're in a classroom or in a building, and you kind of notice someone without a mask on. Now, I'm not going to call Dr. Miller up and say, we got to, there's a code of conduct violation, right? But there's like this, there's a lot of messaging about Tigers together and holding each other accountable, right?
Right.
Now, I'm someone that takes the CDC guidelines and all other expert guidelines pretty seriously. And when I'm in a position of power, like at Tigervision, I have no problem telling a member to mask up.
Right.
There is this awkwardness, right? When I see a peer, am I going to yell from the bottom floor of the business college up to the third floor to say, hey, put a mask on? And I have seen it, but I'm not, I don't know if it's my place. So how should we combat this awkwardness to speak up?
Well, I think it's more about social norming, and I kind of view this the very same way. Now, this is before your time, but at one point in time, there was smoking on campus. I know it's hard to believe, but Bob knows, everybody's out smoking. They're doing all kinds of things. We did not have a smoke police. Now, let me ask you, Ryan, how many times, are you a senior?
Yeah, I'm a senior.
How many times have you seen people smoking outright on campus?
Only a few professors with these types of hats on, but that's about it.
Okay. All right. Okay. That's all about the social norming pieces, right? You don't necessarily need those because people like you and others that are engaged in creating an environment, right, that is conducive in terms of minimizing the spread of the virus. There are some of you that feel much, much more careful about reporting an incident where individuals are not, they don't have face coverings, and some do. Now, some of those things that we can certainly investigate, right? Some we can't. But it's like anything else in that sense. It's more about the community that's taking the response and taking the lead, and in fact, letting us know. And we've had that. We've had citations. We've had individuals that have been, well, the police do it, because they do citations, but city police, not campus police.
Sure.
So we have had incident reports that come in where people are not doing it. It's a level 2 sanction that goes with it. It's not level 1, but still, well, if it's consistent, then it becomes a level 1 piece. But you would be surprised at the number of people that are, in my view, socially responsible that are going to let us know if there is egregious behavior by way of face coverings.
Sure. And since we're on the topic, I'll just jump in it. So that a little bit about like approved face coverings, right? So on Clemson's website, they talk about approved face coverings. I mean, like this mask, it's a vented mask. That's a no, right? And I don't know if it's on your website, but I know that there's been certain studies about those fishing gaiters, the ones that you pull up, about that those may be actually worse than not wearing a mask. At least there was a Duke study that had preliminary findings about that. How is Clemson enforcing not only people wearing masks, but also the right type of mask?
I can jump in here a little bit. One thing that we're doing right now is drafting up all of the health and safety directives into one document, because what we've done is we promulgated little bits and pieces and posted them on webs, and they're all over the place. And now's the time for us to answer questions exactly like that, Ryan, and get them all and the next level of clarity and all in one document with clear wording, because these are things that aren't just concerns that a student has about, what's approved, what's not. How do we get each other to wear masks? It's happening in the employees too.
Yeah.
In fact, there's some employees looking at ambiguity in some of the wording on one website, pointing to it and saying, well, this means that I can go without a mask just because of a grammatical nuance. So we have some clarity to do, and we have expectations in social norming for our employees too. And I'm making a note of your question about mask types because I'm helping to review those documents. I'll make sure that those are very clear in that as well. The latest advice is put in there. So thank you for bringing that up.